Folks, the war in Iran is looking a lot more like World War III, and now we're hearing that apparently Ukraine is about to deploy forces to help the US, so I guess it was handy that the US had given Ukraine so much support. We're hearing that maybe the Russians are helping the Iranians target American installations and bases in the Middle East and beyond, and things are looking very scary indeed. Okay, I'm going to break it all down to you in this video, just how Ukraine is planning to help America. But to get things kicked off, I'm going to show you this footage, okay, just to show you how crazy and dangerous this war is getting for everybody that is out there reporting on it, thinking they're a tough guy, thinking they're invincible. It can go very left. This was a report where somebody basically was reporting from a location in Lebanon that was then hit by what allegedly was an Iranian drone. Missile
outpost opposite Merkaba and carried out drone strikes on the Al Raheb site near Aitar al-Shab. Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and admitted.
Man, that was close. This image, pulled from the footage, shows the missile moments before making impact as RT's Lebanon bureau chief, Steve Sweeney, and his cameraman, Ali Reeder, were crossing a bridge, so it's been zoomed in there. That's what, 10, 15 metres? They have received treatment for shrapnel injuries. After leaving hospital, the reporter blamed Israel for what he described as a deliberate attack.
We've been treated in hospital.
Also, I guess apparently it was Israel. He's saying it's Israel doing the attack. I thought it could have been Iran.
For our injuries, I had a shrapnel wound in my arm, deeply embedded in the muscle here. That's been taken out, and here it is in this pot here. But what I do want to say is that this was a deliberate, targeted attack on journalists. There's no mistake.
There was no one else out there, right? They definitely were trying to hit journalists. So, hey, if that's Israel, that's definitely very, very bad. The IDF released a statement claiming the region where the strike occurred was being used by Hezbollah to transport weapons and move terrorists. He was definitely in the wrong spot. Okay, so they're saying Israel did that one. Hey, Israel wilding out. Now, basically, we're getting more big news updates about the war, okay, and about the situation in Iran. And this was a really sad story that was going on that a lot of people said is an attempt for the Iranian regime to strike fear amongst the population that do actually want to rise up and get rid of this horrible regime. They did a public execution of a teen champion wrestler. He was hung publicly, and, you know, it's pretty just devastating what they're actually doing. They're still executing any activist, anybody that wants a free and a liberal Iran. They will kill you. They will kill you publicly and execute you. So this is an article. It says a 19-year-old champion wrestler, Saleh Mohammadi, was publicly executed in Iran on Thursday for participating in protests against the Khamenei regime. He and 2 other people were hanged in the presence of a group of people in Qom, according to the Iran Human Rights non-government organization. So they're still doing all this, and this is why the leadership in Dubai does not Dubai. This is why the leadership in Iran kind of deserves some of this hellfire, some of this epic fury that's coming their way. It says the IHRNGO says Mohammadi, Saeed Divodi, and Mehdi Ghassemi were accused of being involved with the murders of 2 police officers during recent nationwide unrest prior to the country being attacked by the US and Israel, and they're the first people to be hung over these protests. Combat athlete and human rights activist Nima Farr told Fox News that Saleh's hanging was a blatant political murder on Iran's part, accusing the regime of targeting athletes to crush dissent and terrorize society. It's a terrorist regime. So Mahmoud Amiri Moghadam said Saleh's trial was grossly unfair, said he was tortured and coerced into confessing. Amiri Moghadam warned that protesters are at risk of mass executions, saying the Islamic Republic is fighting for its survival and knows that the greatest threat to its existence comes from the Iranian people who are demanding fundamental change. Nima told Fox News that Iran should be banned from international competitions until it halts executions of protesters and athletes, releases those jailed in sham trials, and ends retaliation against competitors who speak out or defect. He was actually qualified for the Iranian national team in wrestling, and obviously we saw how those female soccer players were treated. Many of them managed to escape while they were playing a game in Australia, but there was rumors that some of them would actually be executed when they went back to Iran. Now, as of a couple of days ago, Israel have been launching a massive and pretty kind of reckless strike on Iran's largest gas fields, and in immediate response, Iran vowed to reduce Israel to ashes. But they've been saying that for a minute, and they ain't done shit.
Iran's largest energy hub hit, intelligence chief Ismail Khatib assassinated, and new U.S. intelligence testimony undercuts a key justification for the war. Here are your updates for the past 24 hours in the war on Iran.
در نتیجه این اقدام زیرساخت‌های سوخت، انرژی و گاز مبدأ تهاجم در اولین فرصت در آتش می‌سوزد و به خاکستر تبدیل می‌شود.
In what is widely seen as an unprecedented escalation since the start of the war, Israel targeted Iran's facilities linked to the South Pars gas field, the country's largest energy hub. The field, located in the Gulf and is shared with Qatar, supplies nearly 75% of Iran's natural gas needs. Iran responded by warning against the targeting of its infrastructure and signaled a broader escalation by threatening to strike neighboring energy sites in the hours following the South Pars attack. True to that warning, Tehran targeted several energy facilities across the Gulf, including Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial complex, a critical hub for liquefied natural gas production. Doha has strongly condemned the strikes on its energy facilities and those of neighboring countries, calling them blatant violation of international law. Qatar also declared the Iranian embassy's military and security attaches persona non grata and ordered them to leave the country within 24 hours. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the U.S. did not know about Israel's attack on South Pars beforehand. He said Qatar was not involved and that Iran responded without having all the facts. Trump said that Israel would not attack South Pars again unless Qatar's LNG facilities were hit, and that if they were, the U.S. would strike back with a force Iran has never seen or witnessed before. Iran's retaliatory strikes didn't stop there. It also targeted energy facilities in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Saudi Arabia hosted an emergency meeting with foreign ministers of neighboring countries, where Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan described the Iranian strikes on its facilities as an attempt at blackmail. President Masoud Pezeshkian confirmed the killing of Iran's intelligence minister Ismail Khatib, calling
So look, they're still catching bodies on Iran, all right, and Trump is saying that he will unleash fury on them that they've never seen before, even after all the fury that he's unleashed on them recently, if they continue attacking these Qatari oil fields. It's not good for business, okay? After this attack that Israel were leading, Netanyahu actually denied claims that Israel had dragged the US into a war and basically said, look, the US and Israel are working together. Trump makes the decisions that he wants to make on his own, and he's not just blindly following what I'm doing, but, you know, he does clearly want to lock in with what Israel have in mind.
And I want to close these opening remarks with one other fake news, and that is that Israel somehow dragged the U.S. into a conflict with Iran. Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. President Trump always makes his decisions on what he thinks is good for America, and may I add, I think what is also good for future generations. In this case, those interests are absolutely clear, and so is the clarity of our achievements. Together in close coordination with President Trump, the close coordination between America and Israel, our militaries, our intelligence services, we're achieving goals in lightning speed.
So he said, ain't nobody telling Trump what to do. Are you dumb? Are you for real? Come on. That's what he said, all right? That's what he said. He's doing a little bit too much, if you ask me. But as of today, okay, Sky News just released a Day 21 strategy update on the exact maneuvers that have been used to fight this war, and it is very interesting to just get a full bird's eye picture of exactly what's going down and how
Day 21 of the war, exactly 3 weeks, and it's easier to interpret what's happening militarily than politically. Militarily, we see the pattern of strikes, and those strikes are occurring every 24 hours or so, but we're particularly interested in the sort of strikes and the targets that are taking place here on Iran's coast with the Gulf, because the Americans seem to be in their third stage of their offensive, and we can tell that by the types of weapons that they've used. In the first stage of the offensive, when they were actually attacking the air defense systems, dangerous thing to do for an aircraft, easier for a Tomahawk missile. That's what they used. Once they had some power over the land, when they could go over Iran more safely, then they were using Lancer bombers, the B-1Bs, to drop bombs on targets that they were particularly interested in. And now they're drilling down by using the Thunderbolt aircraft like this, the A-10s, which are low and slow, but death to anything on the ground. And the Thunderbolts are ranging up and down the coast of Iran, looking for targets, small boats, installations, missile launches, anything. And that tells us that the Americans are on stage 3 of their air campaign. It's going the way they would have wanted it to go. Politically, not so easy to interpret. Benjamin Netanyahu has said that this might be over sooner than you think, and I suspect he was trying to appease President Trump. He said, we've just got to remove the nuclear threat, remove the ballistic missile threat, create the conditions for Iran to control its own destiny. But if you think about it, all of those things are difficult to determine precisely. They'll be achieved when he says they're achieved. Why would he do that? The reason I think he's doing it is because the Americans have got very nervous of what happened here in the South Pars gas field. This is a huge gas field in the Gulf. The South Pars part of it is on the Iranian side of the the Gulf, it's in their waters, and the Israelis struck that. They bombed that. And in retaliation, the Iranians then bombed the Ras Laffan refinery in Qatar, which handles 20% of all the LNG that actually goes into the world economy. And that's one of the reasons why LNG prices have gone so high. And I think that has actually spooked Washington into the idea that this war is spinning out of control politically and also economically. Because this is really what it's all about. And I love these sorts of maps. This is the real world. So there is the Strait of Hormuz as seen from a satellite. Here is the Gulf. Here is Saudi Arabia. Here is Bahrain and Qatar and the United Arab Emirates and Oman. North of here, that's the top of the Gulf. There is Iraq. There is Iran. And then into the Black Sea, there's Ukraine. There are the Trans-Caucasus states. There is Russia. Coming onto this side of the Caspian Sea, there is Kazakhstan. There is Turkmenistan. There is Afghanistan. There is Pakistan, right down to the Arabian Sea. And between the Arabian Sea and the Caspian Sea is Iran. And Tehran is roundabout there. This is Southwest Asia. It is one of the engines, not the only one, but one of the engines of the world economy. Southwest Asia provides resources, oil and gas and petrochemicals. It provides fertilizer, which drives world food production. It provides international banking, transport. Lots of things come out of this part of the world. And yet this engine of the world economy is stuttering at the moment because one component of it, this 33-kilometre bit of water, is not open. And that's pretty fundamental to the way in which that region contributes to the world economy. You know, sometimes wars look a bit like sport. Sometimes in sport, a match, a game, a whole championship is dependent on a foot that goes out of touch, a ball that lands just inside the touchline, just outside the touchline. Tiny margins make the difference between victory and defeat. And sometimes in this area of Southwest Asia, the area that we used to say was part of the great game of Asia, all the attention now is on that part of the touchline that we call the Strait of Hormuz. Day 21.
So that's the most stereotypically British way of describing anything in terms of football or soccer. Okay, I find that quite cringe, to be honest with you. But anyway, okay, it's very interesting to see the lay of the land and exactly what is going down in these oil fields neighboring Qatar. The Strait of Hormuz is being absolutely choked. And despite public claims of wanting to wind down the conflict, apparently President Trump is actively deploying additional troops into the region, and it could even be time for escalation soon.
The U.S. deploying thousands more U.S. Marines to the Middle East, increasing speculation tonight of a possible ground operation inside Iran and what that might look like. 2,200 Marines and thousands of sailors aboard 3 U.S. Navy warships now on the way. President Trump repeatedly pressed on whether he will order boots on the ground in Iran. Tonight, Israel and Iran trading airstrikes. Video showing debris from an Iranian missile crashing right into Jerusalem's Old City. Smoke seen rising from the site. Iranian drones hitting a Kuwaiti oil refinery. The global energy crisis growing. Oil prices at roughly $108 a barrel. Gas prices in the U.S. now up 98 cents a gallon since the war began. ABC's chief international correspondent James Longman leading us off tonight with news of these additional U.S. Marines now on the way.
U.S. officials tell ABC News tonight thousands more U.S. Marines are headed to the Middle East as the Trump administration weighs options on how to reopen the critical Strait of Hormuz. New video shows the USS Boxer and 2 more massive Navy amphibious ships leaving San Diego, at least 2,200 Marines on board. It's the second deployment of a Marine expeditionary unit just in the last week, equipped with ground forces, fighter jets, Ospreys and attack helicopters. With the US already striking more than 7,000 targets inside Iran, this deployment is sparking escalation. Those Marines could conduct ground operations. Options include seizing Iran's Karg Island, the hub of the country's oil economy, or carrying out raids on the Iranian coastline to try to force Iran to reopen the dangerous Strait of Hormuz. Tonight, the White House says there is no plan to send ground troops anywhere at this time, but President Trump hasn't ruled out putting boots on the ground. And late today, the president was asked if he has a plan for Iran's Karg Island.
Well, you know, I may have a plan or I may not, but how would I ever say that to a reporter? If I said that to a reporter, Marco would say, please, sir, let's bring you over to the helicopter immediately, right? No, I can't tell you that. It's certainly a place that's people are talking about, but I can't say yeah.
Tonight, the president blasted Americans' NATO allies, calling them cowards for not helping to secure the strait. Trump saying they complain about the high oil prices they're forced to pay, but don't want to help open the Strait of Hormuz. But many of those American allies have signaled they did not start this war and they weren't consulted before President Trump launched it nearly 3 weeks ago. Tonight, the president says the Strait of Hormuz could be opened with a, quote, simple military maneuver.
It's a simple military maneuver. It's relatively safe, but you need a lot of help in the sense of you need ships, you need volume.
Tonight, French President Emmanuel Macron says France is ready to help escort ships passing through the strait once the situation calms down. Iran tonight continuing its retaliation. An explosion in the heart of Jerusalem's Old City. Smoke billowing into the sky. You see the moment of impact sending debris shooting into the air. Several people have been reportedly injured by missile shrapnel.
I looked up and suddenly I saw a cannonball just falling above me.
Our Tom Sufi Burridge is there.
Well, you can see the force of the blast from those missile fragments. We heard the thud from our hotel. We're in the Jewish quarter in the Old City, just yards away from some of the holiest sites in the world.
Tonight, the global oil shockwaves. Oil is now hovering around $108 a barrel. Gas prices in the US are up nearly $1 since Trump launched the war, $3.92 per gallon. And tonight, the new numbers from the Pentagon. We're now learning at least 232 US troops have been injured, 10 of them seriously, the majority suffering traumatic brain injuries. 13 US service members have been killed. And a US-based monitoring group says at least 1,300 Iranian civilians have been killed and more than 1,100 military personnel. Allah. And tonight, all over the world, millions of Muslims marking the end of Ramadan and the Persian New Year. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, who still hasn't been seen publicly since he was injured in the same attack that killed his father, has claimed to be behind a new defiant statement. He called the US strategy flawed and says it's backfiring. Late today, leaving the White House for Mar-a-Lago, the president was asked about Pope Leo, who's calling for a ceasefire.
Well, look, we can have dialogue, but I don't want to do a ceasefire. You know, you don't do a ceasefire when you're literally obliterating the other side.
It's crazy, right? So it really does make you worry where this is going to go. So now it's time to talk about the Russia and Ukraine connection. So apparently Putin had allegedly offered to cut off intel sharing with Iran if the US cuts off Ukraine. Now they're not going to be feeling that, but this is confirmation that the Russians are sharing intelligence with Iran to try and attack and kill Americans. So this Moscow proposed a quid pro quo to the US under which the Kremlin would stop sharing intelligence information with Iran, such as the precise coordinates of US military assets in the Middle East, if Washington ceased supplying Ukraine with intel about Russia. Two people familiar with the US-Russia negotiations said that such a proposal was made by Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev to the Trump administration envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner during their meeting last week in Miami. The US rejected the proposal, the people added. They, like all other officials cited in this article, were granted anonymity due to the sensitivity of the discussions. Dmitriev labeled the report of the proposal as fake in a post on X, but nevertheless, the sheer existence of such a proposal has sparked concern among European diplomats who worry that Moscow is trying to drive a wedge between Europe and the US at a critical moment for transatlantic relations. US President Donald Trump has voiced anger over the refusal of allies to send warships into the Strait of Hormuz. On Friday, he lambasted his NATO allies as cowards and said, "We will remember." I don't think they're going to like that. The White House declined to comment, and the Russian embassy in Washington didn't respond to requests for a comment either. One EU diplomat called the Russian proposal outrageous, and the suggested deal is likely to fuel growing suspicions in Europe that the Witkoff-Dmitriev meetings are not delivering concrete progress towards a peace agreement in Ukraine, but are instead seen by Moscow as a chance to lure Washington into a deal between the two powers that leaves Europe on the sidelines. So it would turn out that in a major shift, Ukraine's counter-drone units are now officially heading to the region to directly assist the United States. Now, the Ukrainians, they have got to know over the last 4 years how to shoot these drones out of the sky. They've learned how to do it cheaply. They were saying that the American way of stopping the drones costs like $4 million a pop. The drones only cost 20 grand to destroy, and Ukraine actually have a counter-drone unit that can get rid of those drones much cheaper. So now it's looking pretty good. Now we want to be clicked up with the Ukrainians. They got the goods, okay? Ukraine has deployed military units to protect the civilians and infrastructure of 5 Middle Eastern countries against potential Iranian drone attacks amid the US-Israeli war with Iran. Rustem Umerov, the Secretary of National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, announced the deployment on Friday, noting he had been visiting the 5 countries, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan over the past week. They want to know how to stop dem drones. Ukrainian military specialists are operating in each of these countries under the coordination of the National Security and Defense Council, Umerov said Friday in a post on social platform X. The announcement is the most recent indication that Ukraine is seeking to leverage the Iran war to strengthen ties with the US and flex its military innovations as peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia fall to the wayside. Ukraine stands in defense of life and sovereignty alongside those who support us in preserving our independence. We seek to further strengthen security partnerships with our allies. Now, President Trump told MS Now in a phone call Friday that he didn't want Ukrainians fighting in Iran, or Ukraine's help fighting Iran, affirming previous comments that the US doesn't want Ukraine's counter-drone experts. Now, that is embarrassing. He reportedly told Rule that Russian President Vladimir Putin is easier to deal with than Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. I wonder why. And he trusts him more than any of the US European allies. That's alarming. I don't need help, Trump said. He's doing that for political reasons. No, we don't need Ukraine's help in drone defense, Trump said in an interview. We know more about the drones than anybody. We actually have the best drones in the world, actually. Oh no. Zelensky told the New York Times earlier this month that Ukraine sent interceptor drones and experts to help protect bases belonging to the US in the Middle East. Zelensky said in a conversation with journalists Friday, which he posted on X, that Ukraine is open and waiting to enter a drone defense deal with the US and plans to discuss the issue in a meeting. I'm very interested in signing this agreement with our close partner, the United States of America. So when President Trump is ready, I'll definitely be ready. Our negotiating team will discuss the issue at the meeting in the US. The Ukrainians might be the only people that know how to stop these drones. I'm going to show you how they do it, because Ukraine has effectively been defending against Iranian drones that were bought by Russia throughout the entire conflict over in Ukraine, in the east of Ukraine, and this is kind of how they work. They can actually stop these things.
This is new technology, but here an old idea. A cheap interceptor that can destroy the cheap Shahed drones coming into attack. But it's taken a new war in the Middle East to wake the world up to the value of these things. And now the world is knocking on Ukraine's door. And this is how they work. The incoming threat is spotted. The pilots launch the interceptor and use the camera simply to crash into the drones. These interceptors may be complex technology and put together by hand, but unlike expensive missiles and aircraft, they can be mass-produced quickly. The 3D printers at this factory run round the clock, making the plastic parts. The boss said he was surprised the world was only now waking up to their importance.
A lot of state agents from different countries from all over the world, not sure just Arabic ones who are already facing the threat from Iran. So yeah, the request is pretty high and very urgent.
President Zelensky and his ministers want to get more Patriot air defenses in return for helping the US and Gulf with drones, and a Ukrainian team is already on the way.
So look, who's holding the cards now, folks? Who has the cards? Zelensky has the cards. All of the Middle East want to know how to stop these Shahed drones. Nobody knows how to do it for less than $4 million. The one man who knows how to do it is Zelensky. I fucks with Zelensky. I'm not going to lie to you. I actually like Zelensky. We could do a whole breakdown of my thoughts on the Ukraine war. I think a lot of people have got it twisted about that whole conflict. And I think Zelensky actually is one of the few people that can actually give the Middle East what they want. They want to be able to stop these drones without paying millions. And he's been forced to work it out firsthand because they have been hammered by Shahed drones that Russia brought from Iran for years now. Right? He's the only person that knows how to do it. Ukraine war was meant to be a two-day military incursion with Russia taking the whole country. Didn't work out too good, did it? People want to say Ukraine's getting destroyed. Seems like they're standing pretty tall. And if you want to just bleed the US economy dry, spending $4 million to stop every drone strike, then be my guest. But this man, Zelensky, is the only man that actually knows how to stop this for a good price. So I do think he's going to be very important. This does unfortunately reek of World War III. Now you've got Russia, Ukraine, Iran. They're all trying to trade their knowledge to get an upper hand in the global conflict that's going on. Is very, very scary. Okay, but let me know what you thought of that breakdown. I'll be back with another video for you guys later. I've got a very different video. I'm going to do one more video today, I think, and then I'm going to wrap it up. But I hope you found that interesting. I'll catch you guys in the next video, and I'm out for now. Peace.